So go ahead and fill me in on what's going on.
Yes. So I've had Charley for 4 years. We got her in January, I don't know, 2015 or 2016 would be 4 years ago, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was a puppy. We rescued her. And she's been with me since she was a puppy. About a year ago, I took her to training. This was in Florida. So we moved from Florida just a year ago, but I moved her to Chicago just in August of last year. So I moved before her. So this is like her first city experience.
Okay.
When I knew I was moving to Chicago, we were having some issues with leash reactivity where she would lunge at dogs while walking on the leash. And so I knew that if I was going to move her to the city, I needed to kind of get that under control. I took her to Sit Mean Sit, where they introduced me to the electronic collar. And we did 6 private sessions with them. It was just me. We were doing long distance at that time, so it was just me. It did help in some ways. In some ways it didn't help. So one of the ways that it does help is when she's in a calmer state of mind. It does help me keep her like eyes on me and focus on me. As soon as she gets into that higher state of mind where she's going at a dog, the collar doesn't take her out of it. There's nothing I can do. I can hit her at the highest setting that it goes, and she's not reacting.
Yeah. I'm assuming you're using the Sit Mean Sit collar.
Yeah.
Yeah. How big is your dog?
She's 90 pounds.
That's the problem.
Got it.
Is the Sit Mean Sit collar is actually a piece of shit.
Well, I feel like we can tell
that's
given
what we figured.
The aggressive behavior and her not responding.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Obviously, it's because it's their collar. They make money off it, so on and so forth. You're not the first person. You're not going to be the last person. Yeah. So the first thing is, I have a couple other questions, but I know your collar is a big part of the problem. Okay.
Okay.
So you said a year ago is when you did the training with Sit Mean Sit, correct?
Correct. Yeah, a little over a year ago, probably now.
And the reactivity started in Florida or here in Chicago?
It started in Florida, but it's gotten worse here in Chicago.
Okay. Where did you live in Florida? Like a quiet town or like a busy town like Chicago?
Yep. So
much more quiet than Chicago.
Yeah, but there was 2 different scenarios of where we lived. She lived with my mom, was in a house, she had a backyard. Then I moved her into an apartment with me where there was more dogs that she was coming into contact with, which is where the leash pulling started to get worse.
I'm sorry, repeat that second part.
Yeah, I moved her to an apartment where it was just me and her, where she would interact with dogs more, like as on our walks. And that's when the leash pulling, when we passed dogs, got worse.
Okay, but this was all still in Florida, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And it was quieter.
Yeah.
I think the main concern and really the reason for reaching out, we knew there were some reactive spells before, but it wasn't anything like.
I'm sorry, guys.
No, go for it. Go for it.
Am I still hooked up to the thing? Well, then he needs to tow me to a spot. Then I'm not gonna. If I get towed in the street, I'm gonna get stuck again. Okay. Sorry.
No worries.
No, you're good.
We get it.
A lot of stuff going on. So, all right. So you're still in Florida. And I'm sorry, Adam. What were you saying?
Go ahead, Michaela. I feel like you can explain it a little.
The thing is that what most recently is causing us to really want to get this under control is, so we live across from Liz. I don't know if she told you. We're the door across. Yeah. So Kent, who's below us, she tried to bite him on the leash as I was coming up the stairs to my apartment. And then the dog downstairs on the first floor, the husky that only has 3 legs, she goes after him like crazy. So now there's an area of concern that people feel unsafe in the building, and I'm just trying to get ahead of it.
Correct. And Elizabeth, I believe, had told me about there was an incident with a neighbor where she.
That was Ken.
Yeah, that was what we just mentioned. So we were walking her up Michaela was walking her up the stairs from outside.
I didn't see him either.
And she noticed him outside his door with like groceries, and It almost, I don't know anything about all this. You're obviously the expert. It almost feels like it's territorial aggression. Like she feels like she owns the building. It's like her space, and she like snapped and tried to go after him. And she doesn't, I feel like the biggest issue is, and it's probably because the collar, like you mentioned, in those moments, she doesn't respond, no matter like if we're tapping her and all that other stuff. So that's really why we're here.
Okay. So essentially what's happening, because this is pretty common, is I've had plenty of clients who move from quiet town, suburb, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, to busy Chicago. And a dog, in your case, we already saw behaviors developing. They could have a dog that had no issues, and then all of a sudden the dog is super reactive to everything. Okay. And it's because of the energy of Chicago. So like we're used to it, especially if you live in the South Loop, because there's cars, there's lots of people walking around, other dogs, things like there's a lot of stimuli that aren't really around in like a suburban or quieter town, right?
Right.
So that's part of the problem. The other part of the problem is this, essentially the collar you have, I believe it has like 7 settings.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And then it has like the 3 buttons to intensify it.
Yeah. I'm sure you've seen
You
this.
have like essentially 21 levels.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that collar really, I wouldn't, if I did use it, which I wouldn't put that collar on a dog bigger than 35 pounds.
Got it.
Got it.
Okay.
That makes sense.
So you have a 55-pound difference there.
Mm-hmm.
So like you have a featherweight to a heavyweight.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay. So the first thing I would do here is we want to get the correct collar.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll provide you that information. You do want to get the collar that we say.
Mm-hmm.
People have been finding other models that have the same name that are cheaper, and they're not the same. Okay, because if you did that, you're going to end up in the same spot that you're in now. Okay.
All right.
The collar runs about $325-ish with tax.
Okay.
Okay.
It's meant for dogs 70 pounds and over. I'm using it on 2 Rottweilers. I used it on a Mastiff mix. I'm using it on about 3 to 4 reactive pitties at the moment. Okay. So it's the collar meant for your size type of dog. Okay.
Got it.
Is Charley a thick or short coated breed?
Short.
Short.
Okay. So then, because sometimes with the thicker coats, you need a special probes, but you'll be fine. And what I would do is essentially start from the basics. The first thing, and then is she on a prong collar?
No.
No.
We're going to get a prong collar as well.
Okay.
I typically don't do that, but because your building, that stairway is fairly narrow, if you're going to want immediate control if you get caught off guard. And so the prong allows you to immediately control your 90-pound dog. E-collar allows you to shut the crap down. Okay.
Got it.
First thing I would do is reteach the heel command. Did you ever cover heel with sit mean sit?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if you were to walk her, is she walked on a short leash or on a loose leash?
It's the standard length, and I try to keep it loose, but I have like 1 hand on it, 2 hands on it, one on the loop, one a little bit closer to her collar, but I keep it pretty loose, like grip.
Okay.
You probably leave like 12 inches of leash, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, the leash is a standard
Between
length.
your bottom hand.
Okay. So the first thing we want to do is be able to trust that you can walk Charley with a completely slack leash and she's not going to do anything.
Yes.
And you need that level of control. It sounds like, oh, this is going to be a journey, especially if you've already done 6 classes with sit mean sit, but it's not. It's pretty straightforward when you have the right equipment. Okay. The reason why we revisit the heel is I've trained quite a few sit mean sit dogs. They're a franchise. You buy the franchise, you spend 2 weeks studying with Fred, and you watch some DVDs, and then they sell you one of their Malinois, and then because they're a franchise, they do relatively well, but the training usually isn't good.
Okay. Makes sense.
We're going to forget everything that we learned with sit mean sit, and we have to reteach everything. Okay. The first thing we're going to cover is, of course, the heel command, because that's the reference point for the reactivity. It's also going to give us the reference point for how we're going to shut down her behavior. Okay. And so our collars go to 127.
Mhm.
So the model, there's different models. That's why if you look at some collars, they'll say for 15 pounds and under, 35 pounds and under, 35 pounds and over, and then 70 pounds and over, so on and so forth, right?
Mhm.
It's because of output. Obviously, the 70-pound and over collar is going to have a stronger output because they're meant for bigger dogs. So to explain the difference is, let's say the sit mean sit collar, was a powerful collar, 7 and 127 would be the same, but I have 120 more divisions. Okay. So it allows me to really fine tune it to the dog and the situation. Because it's not as simple as just blast them till they
Yeah.
stop. There's a method to everything that we do. Okay.
Yeah.
Because if you come in too harsh, you create more panic. The dog, you may stop the behavior, but the dog doesn't retain why.
Yeah.
Got it.
It's such a harsh correction. The dog's like, crap, what was that for? Okay?
Yeah.
And we need something that's going to be firm enough that it will cut the behavior, but also not so firm that she won't retain why it happened.
Mhm.
Okay, she's going to learn that lesson, like, oh, okay, like 80, I don't want to feel 80 again. And if I don't blow up or be reactive, I don't have to worry about 80. It's kind of the
Yeah.
idea here. Okay. So we see, what does heel fix? So we'll start the first class. I'd give you some instructions. I'd teach you how to use your tools. I would teach you as best I can, at least in the first class, how to handle reactivity. Okay. You're going to get it in the first week, but in order to tackle it, you have to start addressing it. So it's like, you're going to put yourself in scenarios where you're going to get reactivity in order to challenge it and stop it. And then class 2, I go how to go, right? And you may say, Jesse, it was a shit show, or you might say, man, this is crazy. Like 80% of the reactivity is gone. And I go, perfect. Okay. And then I'll ask you questions on, where did you struggle? Okay. So like you might say, a very common is the owner will say like, oh, the other dog started barking first, and then our dog became reactive. Okay. Then I go, oh, okay, that's normal, because that dog put out threat first, right? But if your dog can walk past, the husky, the 3-legged husky or whatever and all that stuff, we're making progress, right? So then we have to start fine-tuning things for those little scenarios, okay? With the prong and the e-collar, that will give you the most control. So then after class 2, we have class 3, right? How are things going? And really it's just play it by ear at that point.
Got it.
Okay, because you're not going to come across every situation in just a couple of classes.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
But let's say you're great for 5 weeks, but then on the 6th week you turn a corner and you get surprised by a dog.
Yeah.
Right. Like if we don't see that for 5 weeks, you're not going to know how to handle that.
Yeah.
So, but I give you all the insights and the knowledge on what to do in those situations. And those take longer to address because you can't plan for them. You turn a corner, there's a dog, right? You open the front door, there's your neighbor.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
Those are things you can't plan for. So those almost always take longer, but you'll have the tools to control it and stop it. And as you keep coming across those instances, we should start seeing those things lessen. Okay. Questions so far?
Yeah. You go first.
No, you go first.
I guess maybe this is not so much a question, but my nerves, like my anxiety right now is that I'm very fearful to take her outside. Yeah. So right now what we're doing is he goes down, make sure no one's in the hallway, no one's outside. Then I walk her down because we've noticed that the neighbor's scared of her. He caught us off guard. He was shoveling snow. He almost tried to hit her with the shovel because he's scared of her. So we're very apprehensive to do normal tasks with her. So I'm just nervous about the prong collar should help us pretty quick, right? To have both of those things. So that anxiety kind of lessens.
Yes.
Okay.
So e-collar progresses very quickly. If you want some examples, have you watched any of our YouTube videos?
We watched a ton of them.
Yeah.
Milo, your neighbor Milo, he's down the block on Clifton. He lives by Nash and Melissa. You guys familiar with Nash and Melissa?
Mm-mm.
We're not now.
No.
Okay, if you go to my YouTube channel
Milo.
and search Milo,
Milo? Yeah, I'll write it down.
he's literally half a block away from you.
Okay.
Okay.
Super reactive, friendly dog, super reactive.
Okay.
And they're doing prong and e-collar or whatever. So he's a good example to watch. And Cashew.
Cashew.
Okay.
Cashew's another one that's really, and she was super reactive when she came in. Okay.
Okay.
For you to see, ideally, when everything's going well, of course, how quickly it progresses. Okay.
Yeah.
You're not the first person that's, scared and has anxiety. I had a lady that used to climb 20 something flights of stairs because she didn't want to take the elevator.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, she was just like, I don't want to see dogs because my anxiety's through the roof. My dog's gonna trip in the elevator. Right.
Yeah.
So
Right.
deal with it.
Okay.
The other thing is, if you want to ease your mind a bit, I would suggest muzzle conditioning.
Okay.
Okay.
It takes away the liability.
Okay.
Okay. Don't worry about how people may feel about it. Don't worry about, people's impressions about it. It will help you feel better.
Okay.
Okay? Because the anxiety comes from, what if my dog bites somebody?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right? What if my dog bites a dog, right? So if you have a muzzle, even if there was a shit show of a situation, it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And we suggest the Baskerville or Baskerville type muzzle. You can get them on Amazon. You do want to get that Basker. Yeah, instead of basket, it's Basker.
Yeah.
And it'll show you how to size it according to her. What people typically do is they'll go a size up or down, because sometimes the sizing is a bit wonky, and then they'll return the ones that they don't need.
Okay.
I have a question about that. So, in your opinion, I know you mentioned 3 different things. Obviously, the e-collar we knew coming in based on the videos and based on talking with Liz. Then you said the prong collar, which I also know about. So is your recommendation at this stage to use all 3, the prong, the e-collar, and the muzzle?
Yeah, like what I would do is, until you can get situated and started, is immediately start the muzzle process. Okay. It'll just help you feel better. Okay. And I mean, I don't know what the rules of your building are, but if you want to talk to your neighbors and say like, hey, we apologize.
Yeah.
We're working with the trainer. Suggesting we muzzle just for precaution's sake, and we're gonna get this all resolved. Okay, just so they know that you're taking active measures. I'm not sure, again, what your buildings, if they have the rules or whatever, if that would impact you. I don't see why, just because it's a safety measure, right? It's like, we're doing this just in case in the meantime because our trainer suggested it.
Yeah. Right. I don't envision any issues with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's typically what I suggest to people, because it's understandable why your neighbors would be fearful of your dog, or, they don't understand, especially if there's been a lunge or whatever. It can obviously be threatening. But at least they go like, okay, cool, you're doing something about it now.
Yep.
Okay.
Right. And one other quick point on that, sorry. Is this a scenario, because I haven't actually gone through the sit mean sit, so this is actually new to me. Michaela's been through sit mean sit, I haven't. In this scenario, if everything progresses well, we move on from the muzzle, or do we?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. You move at your own pace.
Got it.
Okay. Some of my clients love the muzzle in the building, and when they're out, they remove it.
Okay.
Fair.
Even when we move past reactivity, it just helps them, because they're like, well, I have a building with so many doors and corridors. I don't know if I'm ever going to come across that situation where it's just dog, right?
Sure.
And that, in the dog world, if it's so abrupt and sudden and there's a fight, in the dog world, it makes sense. In the human world, we have liability, we have building rules and stuff like that. That's what makes it complicated, right?
Yeah.
So some of my clients get to the point where like, yeah, we were great with the muzzle in the beginning. We're good. We were confident. We have the tools that we need. Our dog's not been reactive. If there is any kind of reactivity, we know how to shut it down really quick. And then they move past it.
Okay, cool.
I don't put a timeline on anything, because I progress very quickly because I've been doing this for 10 years, but you have to rebuild your trust your comfort, your
Mhm.
confidence in everything, because you've done e-collar. So your thought process with e-collar might be like, e-collar didn't work,
Yeah.
right? But I'm like, it's because you have a very low powered e-collar,
Right.
you know? So, because if you would have told anybody else who's not as well versed in e-collar and like has worked with other ex-trainers' dogs, they wouldn't know that.
Mhm.
They
Sure.
would think like, oh yeah, e-collar didn't work. Okay, then why are we gonna do e-collar? You know what I'm saying? But I'm like, right away when you said set me set, I knew exactly what the problem was. I was like, it's probably gonna be a big dog, 90-pound dog
Yeah.
on that little dinky collar.
Right.
That makes sense
Yeah.
to me. That's what I figured too. Because he was like, I want to know what the difference is. Like, why isn't our working? But it's just the technology isn't proper.
Correct.
My other question is outside of the reactivity, which is our main concern. She's really good in the house. Like she doesn't chew things. She like listens very well. The only thing is she's has a lot of anxiety and she's very whiny. So like if we're right now, I'm surprised she's not doing it. She's sleeping. But if we're here eating dinner, for example, she's next to us whining for
Crying,
attention.
yeah.
Not that she's perfectly fine. Or if we're watching TV and not paying attention to her, she's whiny. And that's something that I want to nip to because it's so annoying.
Yeah, that's easy.
Like,
Okay, that's
okay,
easy.
okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about you guys going up and down your hallway without feeling stressed.
Right.
Yes, cool.
Okay. So the whining and anxiety stuff is easy. Is there anything else that you're trying to achieve with Charley? Like come when called, any kind of stationary control, or is it really just the reactivity stuff?
Me personally, I'm very happy with her behavior other than the reactivity stuff. Like, I feel like, yeah, that's where I'm at. But what do you think, Miguel?
Yeah, no, she's fine. Off leash, like we take her to the park across the street off leash. She's fine.
All the time.
If I call her, she comes right to me. Like we don't have any issues there. Although last night, this was the first time the dog that she doesn't like, the husky, passed by off leash. And this is the first time she started to go after the dog off leash. Usually if she's off leash, that dog can pass her and she doesn't pay any attention. But last night there was like an incident through the fence. So other than that, I think we're fine. And I think in an ideal world, we would be able to walk her off leash one day. I don't think that's necessarily what we're trying to accomplish in the first stages of training, but I think like other than the leash reactivity, like that's the main concern.
Yeah, off leash walking seems like the top of the mountain right now. That's not a necessity for us. It's more about like feeling safe and making sure people in the building feel safe. So.
Okay. So you have a couple of options in terms of how we can address this. Okay. One is I have 3, 6, 9, and 12-week programs. I have a 3-week program, which is based solely on dealing with reactivity. Okay. It's 2 classes on heel, right? There's the first class that teaches the stuff. I'll give you as much information as I can. Do your homework. Then we have class 2. Where are we at? Okay, here's the rest of it. I'll see you in a week, right? And then you come for class 3. And then it might be a lot of just like general questions of like, what do you do in certain situations? And a lot of it just has to do with power. Okay. So if you're like, Jesse, what do we do in a situation where the 3-legged dog is off leash and our dog is off leash and she's charging to the fence and she doesn't respond to 90? Then I go, well, you still have 37 more levels. Right. So that's the first thing I always think about is like, well, if you went to 90, we still have 37 more levels.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And then if you're like, well, we went to 127 and she didn't respond, I'm like, did you go to continuous? Right. There's even harsher correction after that. So it's just a matter of being able to override the dog and knowing how to override the dog. Okay.
Got it.
That's it. So the way I teach e-collar is it's very fluid. It's very adaptable because life's not black and white. You know, obedience is black and white, but obedience, you know, having her on your left side and stuff doesn't always work for life's, you know, the situation at hand. You might need your dog on your right side, right? Yeah. So there's a gray area there. So I teach you how to use your e-collar and adapt to the situation and kind of think on the fly. Okay. Because it's not just training your dog, it's training you to feel confident in that tool that's meant to give you ultimate control.
Right. And I feel like that's where we're lacking right now with this one.
And I have a question about that too. how should we, so Adam doesn't feel comfortable using this because he wasn't trained on it. I can teach him, but still it's not the same.
Mhm.
How do you recommend, like, is it one time he holds the collar or the remote and controls it? Is it one time me? Like, how do you, so we both
Oh,
feel
sure. So I work with whoever would be either the primary or, not sound bad, but the weakest handler.
Yeah.
Got
Got
it.
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
The reason why I work with that person first is
Maybe.
because
Yeah, because
She listens to me more than she listens to
Yeah.
him
because I have a bigger gap to fill,
got it.
right, with the weaker handler.
Okay.
And so if you watch, especially with actually both with Cashew and Milo, they're both couples.
Got it. Okay.
And what happens is the first person works with the dog, and then it immediately transfers to the second person.
Got
It's
it.
very
That's
simple.
good
So
stuff.
you would both get to work with Charley,
Mhm.
but if he needs more hands-on experience, I'm going to prioritize him first because you already
Okay.
have a year of some baseline
Yeah.
understanding,
Yeah,
right?
makes sense.
okay.
So, and you'll learn a lot more because I'm not touching your dog.
Mhm.
I'm coaching you through it verbally. I'm there with you,
Mhm.
and you're figuring it out as I'm coaching you, and it's all hands-on stuff.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
So yes, I'm not too worried about that. And the way that I teach e-collar, again, you'll see it in those videos, especially you'll only see it in lesson 1
Mhm.
because lesson 1 nobody knows what they're doing,
Yeah.
right? And you'll see one person work with the dog, and then you'll see we switch to the other person, and right away everything just transfers over.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's how I would anticipate it's going to look for you guys.
Okay.
So with the 3-week program, that's centered just on the reactivity stuff, and it's like, good luck. Okay.
Okay.
Then there's also the 6-week program. If you're wanting just in case to give yourself a little bit more wiggle room, okay, I would prioritize again the reactivity stuff. But for whatever reason, if it did take more, a class or 2 more, like you're already covered because you paid for 6 classes. Okay. Let's say we do the 2 classes and reactivity is progressing very well. Okay. And I go, great. We're just going to teach more stuff.
Okay.
Okay. I know she knows you said she's good off leash and stuff. I would most likely want to proof that recall.
Okay.
Okay. Make that recall very solid, especially if she's like chasing after a 3-legged dog. You want to know she's going to return without a doubt. Okay.
Yeah, that was a scary moment yesterday because I don't know that that's ever happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I think another thing we'll need to teach both of us is, like, to your point, what to do in that scenario, because there's a slight pause where, like, I just like tense up and you as well. And it's like
in that scenario,
like I try to lunge at her, but also she's a 90-pound dog. Like, she can take control over me, like, at the same time. So I think that's another piece that we need to learn, is just how to navigate those scenarios.
One other quick question. So you mentioned 3 and 6 week classes. Is that 1 class a week, 2 class a week? Okay, 1 class a week.
God, and they're on Zoom, right? Is that
No,
how you're doing them now?
we can do them in person.
Okay.
Oh, great.
Because one question we have is, we're planning on going to Florida. We wanted to talk to you about before we plan, like, but we're going to be there for a month. We have to be there in March, like starting early March, but we flexible when we can leave. So is this something we can start and like come back to? Okay, you're okay with that. Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
You would just tell us, just say like, hey, we're going to be out March 15th to the 30th or 15th to like April, whatever.
Yeah.
And you just go, okay. And then Maria will adjust the calendar.
Okay.
It's not a problem because you're letting us know ahead of time.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, cool. And you don't think it will mess with like the development of Charley in any way?
No.
Okay.
Cool.
Not the way that I teach.
Yeah,
Okay.
perfect.
If anything, when I get some clients that I only see once every 2 to 3 weeks because they have a rotating schedule and we don't always line up.
Okay.
And I'll tell them it's just more time to make mistakes and fuck up.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay?
So it's
that's
probably
where you learn.
Yeah, that makes sense.
When you come back, after Florida, you'll have a ton of stuff. You'll be like, hey, Jesse, this was all great. This was amazing. This is where we're still struggling. I go, great, because you had a whole month to figure that out.
Yeah.
Now let's fix it.
Perfect.
Okay, cool.
Well, so then with that, I think we should probably do 6 weeks, right?
I really don't care.
Yeah.
It's your call.
What I prioritize what I know you need.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to prioritize the heal the reactivity. Once that's good, then we'll prioritize proofing the recall, because those are the two most important things. And if we have an extra class left over, then we can work on something, like stationary work, correcting behavior like the anxiety and whining. It's simple. Once you
Okay.
understand how that works, it's really just intuitive.
Mhm.
And then I'm sorry, what kind of dog is Charley again?
So we don't know, but they
We
told
could
us.
show you her.
They told us that she was a Beagle Australian Shepherd and she was going to be 40 pounds. So clearly they
And
were
she's
wrong about.
90.
Yeah, so clearly they
Yeah.
were wrong about everything.
Here, let's see if
Yeah,
I want
take a look
to
here.
show 'em real fast. Can you flip this camera on Zoom?
Yeah, just it's the camera button at the top. Yeah.
There she is. She's sleeping.
There is.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. They say Beagle Aussie. We don't buy that.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of see the like red healer kind of, because wait, are you talking about Australian Shepherd or Australian Cattle Dog?
They said Australian Shepherd. I see pointer in her.
I could see point. I could see that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I don't want to fucking jinx myself here because that usually happens, but I honestly think with the prong, the correct prong and the correct powered e-collar, we should be able to squash all this BS.
Awesome.
Now, when you said off leash, is she friendly with dogs off leash and it's only on leash?
Very.
Very.
Okay.
She's gone to daycare. I've socialized her since she's gotten her shot. So since she was a baby.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think we should be perfectly fine. I can only take you as far as you're willing to go.
Mhm.
So what that means is, as we're learning more about her reactivity, and I end up realizing like, hey, your dog needs 127 to stop the behavior. If you're not willing to use 127, we're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
I think we're super open to any method or option at this point. And we've watched a lot of your videos, like we said. So and we've heard you say that obviously to other clients as well.
Yeah.
So yeah. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine. I think I'm more at first, so I'll just be honest with you. When I was very apprehensive with sit means sit, because I was like, oh my God, am I hurting my dog? Am I going to change her personality because there's so much that I love? And I feel very confident in the e-collar that it's not hurting her at all. So I'm
this
pretty
is a muscle contraction. Yeah, and dogs bite each other.
Yeah.
And you've probably heard me say that to people. I say it all the time. Dogs bite each other.
Yeah.
Everybody's afraid of hurting their dog, but dogs bite each other.
Yeah.
True. The only way you could screw up your dog is when you add emotion to it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're being sad about it or you're being aggressively angry about it when you do your training or your corrections. Whenever you watch me, I'm very neutral, right? Very much just in control or upbeat, never angry, never frustrated, never tense, just kind of, as calm as can be, because you get what you give. So if you're giving off frustration, you're going to get frustration back. Okay. So, but yeah, as long as you're willing to go as to the extent needed, I don't see why we should have an issue with this. So we can do in person. I'm
sorry, I was just going to ask another question about the 3 versus 6.
Yeah.
Because I never looked at your website. What are the pricing differences between the two? And second question, if we want to start with the lowest tier, which is the 3, and then we're like, hey, we need more, how does that work?
So we do it by program. Okay. So let me look up here. It's more expensive per class the smaller the package, right?
Yeah.
So 3 weeks or 3 classes would be $550.
Okay.
6 classes would be $950.
Got it.
Okay. So if you did 3 week and then another 3 week, we wouldn't prorate it. You would pay $550 again.
Each time, yeah. So it's more expensive.
Fair.
Right.
Yeah.
So then you would in total pay $1,100 versus $950 if you just said, I'm going to do 6 right off the bat. Okay. Yeah, that's the same. They could go 6, 9, and 12. From what you're telling me, you're in the 3 to 6 range, right? 3, if all you care about is the reactivity stuff, 6 is like just in case you want some wiggle room, and we can also cover recall. Okay, because it's usually 2 classes on heel and 2 classes on recall, and there's 2 classes if you do 6 as a variable in case we're struggling for whatever reason with the reactivity.
Yep.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Fair.
I personally don't care what you do.
Yeah.
You guys, you know, Maria handles all that stuff. Let me think here. Yeah, so I have a facility here in Logan Square. It's 13,000 square feet. It's plenty of space to train, so we don't have to be out in the, you know, elements like today.
Right.
And if we needed, and we need to bring dogs out or whatever, we have my dogs, my employees have their dogs and stuff that we can kind of close the gap and bring them around or whatever. Plus there's dogs playing in the play area and stuff. So there's a lot going on in terms of like, if she comes in being reactive, good. You're going to get hands-on experience right here, but now it's in controlled context. So we're not worried about like, you know, what happens.
I have 2 questions on that. One, we don't have a car. So, I mean, we can figure it out, but like, we would just, I want to throw that out there. 2, the one concern that I have around that is what I noticed at Sit Mean Sit, we went to the facility and she was out of her element. And so whenever there was no reactivity, we brought dogs, she never was reactive. She was always very shy and like very too close to me and acting perfectly. And I just felt because she was out of her element. So I wasn't sure like if like the training would like, I don't know, is it better to train in her element or is it better to train out of her element? Does it matter?
So with the way that I train, technically it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Because it always just comes down to, is the owner going to the appropriate level?
Yeah, got it.
So
my preference, to be honest, just thinking out loud, is to do it in our element.
Is that
is that not an option?
So it is an option. It's kind of weird though. So the other option is I do train at Oz Park.
Got it.
Okay.
That's
the problem is in the summer it was perfect because it's crazy busy. So people were in a very busy environment, sometimes way too busy than what their own environment would be. And they were doing the obedience or the reactivity stuff right there. So it was very much kind of like training in real life. Okay. The problem is now it's cold.
Yeah.
Right. And then since it's closer to the lakefront, and if there's an east breeze, it's really cold. Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing is we do in-home, but that's at a different rate because now I have to leave my facility to go to you, right? Like 95% of my clientele right now is all at my facility, with the 5% that are in the home or at Oz Park. Okay. So let me think here. I'd have to look at your availability. Maria would have to look at your availability. I mean, you're not far from Oz Park.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm wondering, I think we could figure it out where if we put you end of day on a certain day, I could do it at normal rate.
Okay.
Because I don't know if you guys know, but me and Elizabeth are dating.
Yeah.
No, we know.
So what I would probably do is put you at the end of the day, and then I would just go home to across the hallway.
Yeah.
All right.
It's not an unbelievable inconvenience.
Yeah, and we're flexible, and we're happy to be flexible with that to make it convenient for your time. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So that'll make things easier. So I can do the in-home for you, and I'll just put at a time where I know it's going to be end of day or when I'm going to be it's already, and it's no inconvenience to me, and we can it'll work out for everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
We really appreciate that.
Yeah. So that's figured out. Any other questions?
I'm fine from my end. I feel like.
Yeah, I think that answers.
I'm just eager to get going. Anything else from your end?
Yeah, we're just like very, like I said, going out for walks or anything outside of the weather being a stressor. It's just like a very stressful occurrence. And I know she feels it, right? She sees us tense up and we're like on edge and we're like constantly like looking around the corner and she's got to go. So it's just, we're just eager to get this under control. Oh, I do have one question.
I have one.
The prong, totally understand why we need it in the beginning. Is that something you think we can move away from and just be on e-collar?
Depends.
Okay, got
Yeah,
it.
Okay.
I like typically I only use e-collar to train without prong.
Mhm.
Okay, because we have 2 points of pressure. We have your e-collar, then you have your prong, and
Mhm.
I don't know what's doing the work, right, or
Mhm.
the bulk of the work. So I like to just say only e-collar, right, and then I might hit like a plateau, and then I incorporate the prong, kind of close that gap. We did that with Milo. The
Yeah,
first class, I don't think he did e-collar. He didn't do prong collar. The second class, they did prong collar with e-collar, and he's been on it since.
got
Okay.
it.
The other thing is, it gives you the most immediate control in case you're caught off guard. And so, like, I had a young lady who was 90 pounds, she was like maybe 5 foot, and she had a 150-pound Great Dane
Mhm.
who was dog reactive. So she did obviously prong and e-collar because she needed as much leverage as possible because she was such a small young lady. But
Mhm.
also, she lived in Wicker Park, where I was like, you don't know when you're going to turn the corner, you're
Yeah.
going to see a dog,
Mhm.
right? And the idea here is, yes, we get to the point where we're not worried about it. But let's say you go 3 years and there's no issues, everything's great. But then one day in 3 years, you turn the corner and there's a blow up, but you don't
Yeah.
have the prong, and she's dragging you,
Mhm.
right? Because humans aren't perfect, right? We make mistakes and all that stuff, make the bad decisions. Same thing for your dog.
Mhm.
Right.
The good thing about dogs, though, is that they essentially follow your lead. So you're determining everything. So as long as you're consistent and you don't stray, and you're not creating a gray area, or you're not being lenient, because that's what gets people, is they become complacent. And they go, oh, our dog's been so great for so long. Like, we don't have to be so strict. And like, our dogs now learn to be a good dog. Go, no,
Right.
your
That's
dog
I'm
is a
getting.
good dog because you make them be a good dog.
Mhm.
Okay. So I don't know. If you get to the point where you're like, hey, we don't feel like we need it, then I would say, okay, that's your dog at the end of the day. But if something happens, don't look at me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
Yeah, I have one last question, very stupid, probably naive question. But the only reason I haven't done a prong collar today is because I've been very nervous about it, like, can't get stuck and like choke her, right? I'm just scared I'm personally gonna use it wrong and hurt her.
Mhm.
Okay, got it. I assumed that was
Can't
how.
choke a dog on a prong collar.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, you can't choke them. You might be thinking of a choker collar, which is the chain, right?
Maybe.
A chain collar can, if you misplace it, it can get locked, and
Got
that can choke your dog. A prong collar always releases. As long as you ease tension, it'll release. And you wouldn't like use it to tie out your dog or anything to a post. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how those tools would damage your dog's neck, is because people put it on them and put them on a leash tied to a pole and leave them in the backyard.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
That-
Yeah. So no, I've been doing this for 10 years.
Yeah.
I saw one dog get pinched once by the chain, and he got like a little cut, and it healed up in like 3 days. Like, it wasn't a
Yeah.
big deal.
Mhm.
Again, and shit can happen,
Yeah.
but again, dogs bite each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay? See, we're not doing anything to intentionally hurt your dog. Obviously, if I was hurting dogs, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have a successful business or whatever.
Mhm.
But when it comes to discipline, I do have a firm hand when needed. And like I said, if I'm like, hey, this is what your dog needs, and so we start low, we work our way up. Charley will tell us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ryan wants too low. Charley will
Yeah.
tell us. Okay.
Yeah.
If I nick her at 65 and she's still lunging and barking, clearly 65 wasn't enough.
Mhm.
I keep going up, right?
Mhm.
And like I said, I'm willing to go as far as needed to cut the behavior.
Yeah.
And then so if she makes me go to 127 and then she finally stops, then I go to 127.
Mhm.
Okay.
But you don't, I think I heard this in one of the videos. You don't necessarily, if you hit 127, you don't have to stay at 127. It's going to be dynamic based on that behavior, right?
Depends on the dog.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Like, I had a dog, her name's Malachite, and we did about 3 to 4 classes where she was struggling with reactivity.
Mhm.
And we did all the stuff. And then one day I just told her, you know what, 127. And then I didn't see her for about 2 to 3 weeks after we did that class. And then when I saw her the next time, she's like, holy shit, Jesse, totally different dog now.
Wow.
But it was most likely going to be 127 forever.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
but it became 127 less frequently.
Got it. Yeah.
Right, because like if you touch a hot stove, do you really want to touch a hot stove again?
Yeah.
Right, like you're really, that's what aversives are meant for. Aversives are meant to deter behavior from happening again, right?
Mhm.
For all I know, on the appropriate collar, 35 could be all she needs.
Yeah, because 27 is what we have now, you're saying?
You have 21.
21
yeah.
total.
But it's meant for a 35-pound and under dog.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
bizarre to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll have a lot more power to work
Yeah,
with.
we'll have more room.
All
All my questions.
yeah, so I'm really just giving you worst case scenario.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's going to be that way, because if I'm like, yeah, it's going to be great, it's going to be smooth sailing, it's going to be
Yeah.
rainbows and fairy farts,
Right.
you know, like it's feeding you BS. And so
Yeah.
this way you're like, okay, if this is the worst it's going to be and we're okay with it to get the answer, then we shouldn't have any issues.
Yep, makes sense.
Right.
All right.
All right, guys, anything
Cool.
else?
That's it.
No,
Thank you
thanks
so much
for your
time.
help. Yeah.
You're welcome. So keep watching videos, keep educating yourself if you'd like. I would definitely look into the Baskerville muzzle as soon as possible. Start that process, because it does take time. And in terms of muzzle conditioning correctly, and then feel free to start using it if that just makes you feel better. It just alleviates the anxiety of like what happens if she does something, right? And if you just use it from the front door downstairs, and when she's outside, she's for the most part better, then you're fine.
Okay.
You know, you pick and choose what you need.
Okay, perfect. And then Maria will tell us to buy where do we buy the collar? Is that something we
You
get
can
on
on Amazon.
Okay, so she'll send us, and then we'll just buy it before the first session. And
Correct. And then when you buy it, make sure that when you get it, you would test it out, make sure it's working correctly.
Okay.
Because sometimes, you know, because it is electric, you'll get a lemon where the dial doesn't work correctly and it'll be like shooting all over the place.
Okay.
Make sure that, you know, like the buttons work and all that stuff. So that when and I'll send you a couple of videos.
Okay.
Once you are confirmed to watch, and you would watch them prior to your training. Don't, do anything. Just watch them. Okay. To prep you, so this way when we come to the class, we can just jump into training and not have to worry about going a bunch of like simple stuff.
Perfect.
All
Awesome.
right.
Cool. Well, that answers all of our questions, and I think we feel pretty optimistic. So appreciate your time.
Yeah, no worries. So if you need anything else, you let us know. Otherwise, Maria will get in touch.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jesse. Appreciate it.
Have a good one.